What was the first time you played with the whole band? Or tell me about that experience, showing up for an audition. I imagine that was the next step.
Well, that's why I was saying when Flea called me up to tell me they were hiring Blackbird, I hadn't auditioned. He told me I could audition, and then he went back.
It never happened.
It never happened.
Then what happened next?
Well, there was an audition, but I didn't know it was an audition when it was happening. Flea had cooked up this idea. So one day I get a call from him. You know, we're friendly around this time. We see each other at a party. He'd come over to my girlfriend's birthday or whatever. So just friendly with each other. And one day he just calls me up and he says, hey, man, I'm making these 4-track recordings. I have a drum machine here and this cassette 4-track. And do you feel like coming over and playing some guitar on this stuff? And so, of course, I said yes. And I went over to his apartment. So he had like 3 songs of him playing bass to a drum machine. And I made up guitar parts on the spot, plugged directly into the 4-track, and played the parts I made up. And we had fun doing that for a while. And then we sat around. I think we watched some Funkadelic videos for a bit, and we're hanging out with his wife, Loisha. And it turns out I knew only way after the fact that what Flea had done was he recorded Blackbird making up his guitar parts and recording them on that same 4-track tape. And then he erased those parts and recorded me on the same tape. So he had mixes of both and he could compare whose guitar parts are better. Little did I know after I left that night, Loisha said to Flea, she said, that's the guitar player for the Red Hot Chili Peppers. He has to be your guitar player. For Flea, he was feeling definitely a lot of guilt about the idea of getting rid of Blackbird. So I guess, even though I guess I won that contest or whatever, a couple of weeks went by and nothing more happened. And then one day, Flea gives me a call and he tells me Bob Forrest from Thelonious Monster is looking for guitar players and things aren't going super well with Blackbird. But he's like, I'm not sure where that's going with Blackbird or if it's working out. And so I told Bob he could have your number, but I also told him that I have first dibs on this guy. If we decide we want him in the Chili Peppers, like I've got first dibs and you can't be angry if I take him from you, you know?
Amazing.
So I talked to Bob. I go down to the Thelonious Monster rehearsal and I auditioned for them and they hired me right away. But the thing about that rehearsal was Anthony Kiedis was there at the rehearsal. So I don't know, him and Flea must have talked. Flea was like, you should go check this guy out. And so Anthony was watching the whole time. So I auditioned, they hired me. Then Anthony left there and went to Flea. And then they both called me up at like 6:00 in the evening. And they were like, we've been talking a lot about it and we've decided we'd like you to be the guitarist of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Is this what you want? And I said, yeah, I want this more than anything in the world. And they had to figure out the ordeal of telling Blackbird about it and stuff. So they wanted to be sure that this was definitely what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I called Bob and told him, you know, I'm happy to play whatever gigs you have scheduled right now, keep playing with you now. But they asked me to join the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So that's what I'm doing. And he said, yeah, I figured that was going to happen.